Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hands Down DFS. Ryan here with Scotty, of course, and we're breaking down the Week 3 Draftkings main slate. Scotty, welcome. How you doing?
Feeling good, man. I feel like every year it kind of takes a couple weeks to shake the rust off on the NFL side of things, and I feel like last week was a little bit of a getting to really get back to into the groove. Made some decent money on it, and so really excited to get back into week 3.
Yeah, 1 week of rust isn't too bad. I'll take that.
Not too bad at all.
So let's get into Week 3. Just disclosure, we're recording this on a Wednesday night, a little bit earlier, so some injury news might not be out yet. Projections still too early for ownership projections, so we don't have all the information we have, but we're going to do our best to give you our best plays and who to play, who to fade on the slate. So let's start off with the QBs, and I think the first thing to note that happened in week 2 was a lot of injuries to QBs. Tua went down for my Dolphins. Wentz went down for the Colts. Andy Dalton went down for the Bears. So we've got a lot of backups playing and a lot of cheap backups at that. Brissett is at 4,900. Justin Fields at 5,200. Probably the guy with the most upside. And then Jacob Eason is at minimum priced of $4,000. With all the injuries we had week 2, are you considering any of those guys for week 3?
Yeah, so how I see it is I think Brissett is your safest pick. Obviously, he has the best career thus far in the NFL. I mean, it always surprises me that he doesn't get starting potential. I mean, you look at teams who, like the Texans, who are starting Davis Mills, who is another quarterback that got injured with Tyrod Taylor, but they're on the Thursday night slate, so obviously not part of this. It's surprising. I mean, Jacoby Brissett is a really good quarterback, has rushing upside. At 4,900 is definitely a play that I like and I see as safer. Somebody who I really want to be good, but I imagine probably isn't going to have the game that you want and will probably have a little bit of elevated ownership is Justin Fields. And then I'm not touching Jacob Eason at all. I think that offense is already a little shaky. And then I also think that I think he's a bad quarterback. So those two mixtures just...
That is just harsh.
Yeah, just coming out and saying it. I don't think he's good at what he does.
This NFL quarterback is just bad.
Bad. Yeah.
No, I kind of like Eason. I don't think he's going to go out and get you 25 points, but for minimum price, he's got the easiest matchup out of the 3 guys we mentioned. I think he does at least. Tennessee's secondary has not looked good through 2 weeks, so I think he. If you want to play him in cash games, I don't think he's going to kill you. He might come out and get you 16 points, but that's 4 times value, which really is all you need with a 4,000 level player. So I mean I don't mind Eason. I agree. Brissett I think is the safe play, especially the Raiders have looked solid this week or this year, but I think they're the teams have still put up points against them. It's not like they're invincible. So I think those are the only two guys I'm considering. Fields, I agree. Don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw with the Raiders defense, I mean, their defensive line is kind of the strength of the defense there. And so with Myles Gaskins and company, you have Ahmed as well in there. I think they're going to have to be passing the ball kind of quick. I don't think that Dolphins' offensive line is very good at all. No offense, but
no, they're the worst in the league. It's just statistically the truth.
Yeah, and so I think you're gonna have to see a lot of passing there. Maybe open up the run game a little bit with some read option, but again, that's just rushing upside for Brissett. So, I really like that play, even though I think the Vegas has a pretty good team this year.
Yeah, agreed. Another thing I noted on the slate, we have got a lot of really good QBs against some really bad defenses. 2 of the top 3 guys there with Kyler Murray against Jacksonville. And even though it says 9th for Lamar Jackson versus Detroit, 2 of the top 3 guys against some poor defenses. Also, further down the list, if you're looking for value, Teddy Bridgewater, who we loved last week against the Jets. Daniel Jones, a guy who might be a sneaky good play against the Falcons this week. So a lot of good QBs that normally we would be attracted to, but I think against these bad teams, they're going to carry ownership. And, there's always that fear that maybe if they get up by multiple scores, it becomes a very run-heavy game. Maybe Saquon can actually do something this year. We'll see. But with all these guys playing against bad teams, where are you leaning?
I am leaning towards the quarterback who is rated as the number 2 quarterback according to Pro Football Focus. He is the guy on the screen right now, Daniel Jones. As crazy as a statistic that is, because going into the league, there was a lot of rumors that Daniel Jones would be the first quarterback to lose the starting job. But he has played surprisingly well. I'm not necessarily sure how well he's played from an actual football standpoint, but he has the rushing upside. He has had a rushing touchdown in each of the games that he has played so far this year. He has been able to stay away from the turnovers. He did have the one fumble the first game, but no interceptions. And that's, you got to love that when you see a quarterback that is having rushing attempts, even against a Washington football team defense who, there are a lot of rumors out there that the Washington football team defense isn't as good as advertised from last year. It's just that they went against pretty weak teams. But still, I mean, he had an impressive game against them. And so I think Daniel Jones is definitely a place where I'm going to be going. I think Kyler's going to get a lot of ownership. I actually like Trevor Lawrence on the other side of that game to kind of be a player who's going to be down a whole bunch. And, I mean, he hasn't really performed, or at least he didn't last week with the 8.8. But the week before, he did have 25 points. Denver is obviously a much better defense than Houston, and then I also think is Arizona as well. And so his price has dropped a little bit. I think he's going to come against the easier defense now. He does have a little bit of rushing, as we saw in the last game. They're starting to use him more in the rushing game as well. So Trevor Lawrence is a player as well who I think could be potential there. But yeah, to answer your original question, I mean, obviously Kyler's going to be the chalk there. Daniel Jones is going to be someone who I like more. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I scary like Daniel Jones. And it's the great thing about DFS, right? You can be on a crappy team who might go 0-17. I don't think the Giants are going 0-17. But my point is, you could be someone on a crappy team, but when you're putting up 61 yards a game on the ground that Daniel Jones is averaging and scoring a couple touchdowns and getting 25 points a week, it doesn't matter what team you're playing on. He's going to make you money. So I like Daniel Jones against Atlanta. Maybe he can get it going through the air as well as on the ground, because Atlanta has just been really susceptible to the big games from opposing teams. Not even just this year, but going back past couple seasons. So I agree. Really like Daniel Jones. I also really like Lamar Jackson, just because I think Detroit, we've seen 2 games in a row where they're a bad team. Everyone thought they're going to be a bad team this year, but they've shown the ability to at least keep the score respectable, put some points on the board, and keep. We saw it Sunday night. I think Monday night. Aaron Rodgers was, throwing the ball basically the whole game up until the last couple drives. Granted, a lot of that went to Aaron Jones, but I mean, Detroit's able to put points up on the board. Goff doesn't look bad. They don't have big name receivers, but guys like Hawkinson and Swift and Cephas. Yes, Cephas. They all can catch the ball and make games
the pride
competitive.
Of Wisconsin.
So, so yeah, I do like Teddy Bridgewater with if they have to use him throughout the whole game to stay ahead. I think that's a good play.
Yeah, I agree. Well, now that we kind of covered the quarterbacks again, because we don't have a lot of the statistics and stuff that we typically have on the ownership and stuff, I think this could be a quicker video. So moving over to the running backs, obviously I'm going to admit it, I was not bullish, I was bearish on Derrick Henry last week, kind of was staying away from it. You were more bullish on it and said, yep, he's going to be great. And I tried to convince you out of it, and I shouldn't have done that because you were right. So congratulations. There's your victory lap.
Thank you.
Derrick Henry had an amazing game.
I was going to say, I wanted to get that on air when before the game. I was like, I like Derrick Henry. And you're like, Derrick Henry? And I was like, yeah, you remember him? The guy who gets 200 yards every game?
Yeah, it's okay. You're not right every time. And so, but yeah, so Derrick Henry had a great game. Do you see him doing that again this week? Is that he's up there at the top? Do you think he has maybe not as good of a game, but definitely a solid game, or right. What are you thinking?
I mean, of course, he's probably not going to have another 51-point performance. Probably won't this season. Maybe he can get up there again. But, I mean, I think he'll have a decent game. I know Indy's has a good defensive front, but, when Derrick Henry, like we've talked about, just volume, volume, volume. 35 attempts on the ground. He had 6 receptions. So he touched the ball 41 times in the game. If he does half of that, if he touches the ball 20 times, he's probably getting 20 to 25 fantasy points. So I don't think he's a bad play at all. But I like the guy right below him and Dalvin Cook more. And why? Because, look who he's going against. The guy that Derrick Henry just put up 50 points against. And Dalvin Cook is basically the same type of player, a guy who can get 25 rushes and is involved a bit in the pass game as well. So I think, for $200 cheaper, I think the ownership is going to fall heavily on Dalvin Cook, which honestly, maybe you think about going Henry again if he's still not going to get. He only was 6% owned last week. If he's still going to be that low this week, I'm definitely going back to him. But I think Cook is in a better spot has a better matchup, better price, obviously. So I like Cook a little bit more. But again, ownership, I might stick just to cash games with him, try to find leverage elsewhere.
Yeah, and you do see the questionable tag, obviously, on Dalvin Cook. That is something that we typically probably don't worry about on Wednesdays. That is, once you kind of get back into the season, that is pretty typical for a veteran to not practice on a Wednesday. So unless there's something kind of that comes up more about it, then we'll obviously make the adjustments there and maybe tweet that out. But yeah, I don't see any reason to worry about Dalvin Cook this week in his ability to play.
No, I completely agree. So sticking with the guys we see on the screen right here above 6,000, this kind of top tier running backs. If you're not going the top 2 guys, is there anybody else on this 6,000 plus running back slate that you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the guys that I like, kind of in a weird way, is Najee Harris. Yep. I think if Big Ben plays, I like him. I think if Big Ben doesn't play, I think I like him less. As surprising as that is, because it's kind of the same thing that we've been talking about with Alvin Kamara. Kamara was great last year because he was getting a lot of the checkdowns from the old man quarterback. Now that you're going to get either Dwayne Haskins, Lord, I pray it's Dwayne Haskins, but it's probably going to be Mason Rudolph. And he's more of the deep ball kind of guy. He likes to kind of throw it around a little bit, even though he's not very good at it. Again, I'm just coming after quarterbacks.
Come on, man.
Yeah, but I think that's going to hurt Najee's passing game or receiving game. And so we obviously see he's not necessarily getting it done on the ground. That's not his fault. It's the offensive line's fault. They're young. We have like 3 rookies on the offensive line or something like that. And so we're rivaling the Dolphins for the worst offensive line. And so I do like him in the passing game just because he gets that usage. If Ben plays, if he doesn't, I'm going to stay away. Another player I like is Eckler, just because I think this game's going to have 100 points in it. I think each team could easily score 50, and nobody would bat their eye. Maybe that's
I can't tell if you're exaggerating or not, honestly.
Honestly, with the Kansas City, it's just like, sure, I think they can hit 50. I don't, and then it's just can the Chargers keep up? And so, obviously, that might not be the best thing for Austin Eckler if they're not going to be able to run the ball as much. But what we've seen a lot in the Millie Makers is the lineups that are at the top are going to be the running backs who they're not getting their usage on the ground. They're getting their usage through the passing game. Last week, after seeing no targets in week 1, he saw 9 targets, caught all of them, only had 61 yards off of it. That's definitely a trend that you like to see kind of continue going up against this Kansas City team.
Yeah, and just a little stat to point out, but 2 weeks in a row, the winner of the Millie Maker has stacked a QB with their running back on the same team. So I don't know if that trend continues into week 3, but Herbert, Eckler, Mike Williams, some sort of stack like that. Obviously, that's going to be a high-scoring game. You run it back with a Kansas City guy. That's
literally anybody on Kansas City will be fine.
Yeah, quite literally.
Speaking of anybody,
I was going to say
City,
even Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 4,800.
Yeah, let's talk about him.
Yeah, that is a ridiculous price for him. I mean, I know he's just his career so far hasn't been up to the expectations it had coming into it, but he's a guy that's getting 15 touches a week.
We were so excited about this dude last year. It was stupid how excited we were about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I will say, because, yes, he did only score 3.5 points last week. We're not oblivious to that. We get it. Bad. But one thing I will say is that he did have an ankle sprain in the preseason week 2. I saw this. I think it was RotoSurgeon who tweeted this out. Shout out to him. This is going to be. It typically takes 3 to 5 weeks to recover from an ankle sprain, where you can play on it still, but you're not really who you are back. And so this is going to be week 5, and so maybe he's just kind of been lingering through that ankle sprain, not really being the runner that we expect for him to be. They keep showing that they want to instill confidence in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, they spent a high draft pick on him. He's somebody that they want to see succeed, because obviously to take any pressure off of Patrick Mahomes is nice. Not that he needs it, but just so that he's not throwing his arm out, passing the ball every play is probably good for him. And so, yeah, I think he's unbelievably cheap at 4,800, and we could see a big game.
Yeah, and obviously there's a big level of difference between college and pros, but I'm looking at his college stats right now. His junior season at LSU, his last season there, he was averaging 7 yards every time he touched the ball from scrimmage. Kansas City, I'm not going to say they have a college level defense, but it definitely isn't one of the better defenses in the NFL. So maybe we can get some CEH working this week, and at 4,800, he's just too cheap to completely fade out of your player pool. At the very least, you want to have some exposure to him.
Yeah.
Another guy I want to talk about that I really like, I'm going to mention them a lot, so get ready. But the Baltimore Ravens, Tyson Williams, I think this guy's he's just a talented running back. Obviously, it sucks. They lost Gus Edwards. They lost J.K. Dobbins. They lost a slew of other running backs. Justice Hill is the other one that went down. So Tyson Williams has come in. He's averaged 6.5 yards per carry. If you watch the Monday night game, Aaron Jones scored 4 touchdowns. Is that right? 3 in the air, 1 on the ground.
Mm-hmm. That one on the ground, boy, that was
a big Prize Picks play for hands down DFS. But yeah, so obviously Detroit's been susceptible to at least Aaron Jones scoring lots of touchdowns and getting lots of yards. So don't see why Tyson Williams can either. The only thing that scares me is Latavius Murray taking away his goal line touches, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, you saw week 1, you saw the 49ers be able to run all over the Lions as well. Yeah. So I definitely think that's a solid pick. It's just going to be who's going to get the touchdown. And because as we see, Tyson Williams didn't have a great game last week. I mean, he had 11 points, which is fine. But it all depends on who's going to get the touchdowns.
Right.
Is it going to be Latavius Murray? Is it going to be Lamar Jackson? Is it going to be Tyson Williams? Is it going to be, now that they're bringing in Devontae Freeman, is it him? And so, yeah, I think he's a solid pick if we can get the touchdowns, and maybe that's what makes his ownership a little bit lower, and you can take advantage of that. But yeah, I think he's a solid pick as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a workhorse. So even if he isn't getting the touchdowns, obviously you would love that. But if he has the ball, 15 plus times at 6 yards a carry, he could break 100 yards. I don't see why he can't.
No. Yep. Okay, and then let's see, any other running backs you want to touch on before we move over to the wide receiver pool?
Just one guy I'm just interested to see if Josh Jacobs plays, because if not, I really have interest in Kenyon Drake. He's at 5,500. Derek Carr is also a little bit banged up, so I think maybe there's a focus on the ground game, especially against Miami, who had allowed 117 all-purpose yards to Damian Harris in week 1, and then to the 2 Buffalo running backs, Singletary had 91 yards, Zach Moss had 34 yards. So back-to-back weeks, giving up about 120 all-purpose yards to running backs. And also, I love me a good revenge game, and Kenyon Drake playing Miami for the first time since being traded in 2019. In the last 5 or 6 years for the Dolphins, he's probably been my favorite running back who's played for them. I think has the guy that I think has the most talent. So I kind of like him if Josh Jacobs doesn't play.
Yeah, I think Kenyon Drake, and then also Peyton Barber was a guy that we saw get a couple carries last week. And when I say couple, I mean 13.
13
is more than Kenyon Drake had, but we see that he didn't do anything with that. And then Drake was also more involved in the passing game,
right,
which you gotta love in the point per reception scoring that Draftkings is, obviously. So, yeah, I think that's a solid pick as well. Josh Jacobs looks like he is leaning towards out again. And so, yeah, I think that's a totally solid pick.
Yep.
I got to stop agreeing with everything you say. That doesn't make for fun.
It's okay. Just disagree with me on here. I can throw out a really bad take.
Well, the thing is, the last time I disagreed with you, Derrick Henry scored 51 points. So I mean, I'm just trying to learn from my mistakes, really.
How about I absolutely love Darrell Henderson against Tampa Bay's rush defense. I think that's a big play, especially coming off that injury he had.
Wrong.
What do you think about that?
Bad.
Okay, now that we've covered all of our running backs, let's move over to wide receivers.
Okay. Before we jump in, really quick, I asked you a question last week. We kind of laughed it off. It's kind of just like, that can't be the case. I asked you, is Cooper Kupp the second best wide receiver for fantasy?
No,
you kind of laughed
I mean
off.
he's not. He's the first. He's number
right? Like, unbelievable. He comes back after a pretty strong 26.8. Like, okay, that's like a good game. Like, good for him. Comes back, follows it up with almost a 40-point game. What do we do with him?
I think he can score even more than that against Tampa Bay. He's got, as far as I know, again, I haven't looked too deep into the wide receiver cornerback matchups, but what I do know, he probably has one of the easier matchups on the entire slate, and he's getting the bulk of the targets for the Rams. So, and we've talked about Tampa Bay's secondary not looking too good this year. I think this could be another 40-point game. Robert Woods, obviously.
What do we do with Bobby Trees?
Love the name. I think he's cheap. Obviously he doesn't have the upside that Kupp has. We've seen Kupp now have 2 big games in a row, but he's getting the targets. You saw 9 there last game. He only had 4 the game before, but if he is getting 9 targets, and I think he should stay at that level against Tampa Bay, we've talked about it. Teams against them have to go to the air. They've got a really good run defense, really bad pass defense, so going to be throwing the ball a lot. I think Robert Woods is pretty cheap at 5,700 if he's getting 10 targets. So I think they're both very viable plays, but I think Kupp has a better matchup and is the best wide receiver in fantasy football or the NFL in general.
Yeah, just period. Yeah, and Bobby Trees, that is not my owner. I think that's the Ringer Fantasy Football show that calls him Bobby Trees. But, yeah, I think they made a point, which is pretty solid, is that they're both out there, right? Obviously, more so than just he's on the field. But they're both getting targets. They're both getting usage. They both, it is pretty 1A, 1B. It just happens to be that Cooper Kupp is kind of completing the passes more, and he's making more yards out of it, and he's getting the touchdowns. And I think we are going to see some regression to the mean on both of them. Robert Woods going up, and then Cooper Kupp going down. And so I definitely think that Robert Woods is somebody who is going to be seeing a lot of ownership kind of passed on because of Cooper Kupp. And so I think Woods is a solid play this week.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't mind either of them. And I think you like that Ram stack, so I think you talked about it on your video. So either one of them.
Yeah, I marked them as one of the obvious ones. I didn't talk about it too much because it's obviously Matthew Stafford and then Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Heck, play both of them. Why not? Even throw Higbee in there if you want. And maybe not against the Tampa Bay defense. You don't want Devin White, but yeah. So never mind. Don't throw Higbee in there.
One of my favorite ranges for wide receiver this week is starting with Kupp, who we already talked about, but Kupp down to there you go, stop right there. So Cooper Kupp down to Mike Williams. I think everybody in between there is very fairly priced and has a potential for a big game. Thielen, obviously, if you're going against Seattle, we've kind of talked about this. When you see Seattle on the slate this year, it's probably going to be a high-scoring game. Keenan Allen, if the Chargers are going to score 50-plus points like Scotty says they are, you're going to want some Keenan Allen. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones both have very high upside. One of them will probably have a bad game if the other one has a big game, but at 6,500, their ceiling is probably 30 points, maybe even higher. And then Mike Williams, who has just gotten target after target after target from Herbert, even though the Chargers really haven't been able to string together a good good offense this year, he's just 22 targets in 2 games. I mean, you can't ignore that.
Gotta love the consistency. 22 points each week. Love it.
Yeah.
Right, pencil it in.
22 targets, 22 points per game.
Just pencil it in. But no, I agree with you. And I think even looking at this list, and this is where obviously talking about wide receivers is so interesting because a lot of it is stack dependent on who you go with the quarterback and who you just think is going to score the most points in a game. But I mean, you did the cutoff at Williams. I think it even goes a little bit further. I think Evans is a solid play against the Rams because I think there's going to be a lot of scoring there. I think Godwin, again, for the same reasons, going to be pretty good. Allen Robinson, not necessarily sure what we're going to get there. Deontay Johnson, if he's out, I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a great play. And if Rudolph is the quarterback, I think they throw the ball a little bit more. So I think Schuster is a solid play against the Cincinnati defense that isn't great. And then Cortland Sutton as well. I mean, he's coming off of a pretty high-scoring game as well himself with the 160 yards that he had for 28 points. I mean, and then you get into guys that I love, and so I think there is just a lot of solid depth on the wide receiver slate this week, and it really just depends on who you think is going to get the touchdowns and who you think is going to be scoring a lot of points and moving the ball a lot.
Yeah, it's such a deep high end, I guess. I don't know a better term to put it, but like if we scroll all the way to the top and you're looking at guys like Diggs, Hill, Hopkins, you don't really need to pay up that 8,000 plus to have the same ceiling that a guy at 6,000 has or less. Sterling Shepard, I think a guy that we're both going to like probably has a very I don't know who, came out of nowhere this year. No, I mean he was a staple for the Giants last year, but he came out this year firing on all cylinders. You can see 16 catches this season. I mean, he's killing it, and we really like Daniel Jones against Atlanta. So, yeah, I really think he's got like a 35-point ceiling, probably very similar to someone like Hopkins or Hill, like we talked about, and probably Kelsey as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting 10 targets a game, I mean, and you turn one of those into a touchdown, if you get to the 100-point mark, 100 yards mark, where you get that extra boost, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to not like a lot of these guys on the slate because they all have that opportunity. And I think it's just going to come down to once we get projections coming out on Fantasy Pros or wherever you get those, then maybe you kind of move based on ownership and try to do some off plays there. But yeah, I mean, it's just pretty stacked in that line or that section.
Yeah, I agree. So what about, obviously it would be very nice if we can, plug in those 3 guys in the high 6,000 range, but it's probably not feasible. So where are you looking to get some salary relief if you're in the wide receiver pool?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you count this as salary relief, but I am very, very torn on Michael Pittman Jr. as a player. Coming off of a great game, his best game of his career, we weren't sure how he was going to be after the first game, blah, 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 blah. But I think he's going to be such a strong wide receiver. I think the wide receivers there are pretty banged up. We still know T.Y. Hilton is out. We know Paris Campbell is going to be kind of struggling through the abdomen injury that he has. Whether or not he's back this week, we don't know. Tennessee is a great matchup for him.
Pascal's now questionable. He has an unknown illness. It's not COVID, but he's questionable and didn't practice today, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. I'm sure he's fine. But man, like it's just like Eason. Like how many yards is Eason gonna throw? Is he even gonna throw for 100 yards this week? Probably. But it's just like you're asking a lot, and it's not that I don't trust Pittman, but I just don't trust the quarterback.
Right.
And I think they do a lot of Jonathan Taylor. I think they do a lot of just kind of throw it when you need to and hope that the running game is good enough to beat Tennessee, which it could be. So, yeah.
I talked about it a bit on my first look video, but Pittman also highest price jump on the slate, up $1,200 from last week. And like you said, up $1,200 plus you're getting a quarterback who hasn't thrown the ball much in an NFL regular season game. Kind of scary. I don't know if we see the ownership come in tomorrow at less than 5%, maybe you take a chance on him, and hopefully Eason comes out looking like Tom Brady, and Pittman has another 20-plus point game. But yeah, I mean, it's just a confusing spot. I feel like if all those Indy receivers are out or are going to be on limited snap count, it's you even with Eason, you have to play Pittman. He just has too much volume that will be coming his way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but then you got guys that you got to love, like Rondell Moore coming off of the game last week. I think he's going to be good. Tim Patrick is a guy that we both liked last week. I think he's going to be solid against the Jets. Moving down this list, Will Fuller's going to be back. Not necessarily sure what we're going to do there, but
no, not with Brissett.
Yeah, who of the? I mean, because if we did talk about that, we kind of like Brissett this week. Any of the wide receivers for Miami going to be worth playing, or is it
It's just so interesting because I don't know. I mean, obviously these three guys have not played together yet. Going into the season, I felt it was going to be Will Fuller as the wide receiver 1, Waddle 2, Parker 3. It's kind of looked the other way. Waddle's probably gotten most of the targets. Parker's probably had the better production, better efficiency with the targets he's gotten, and then obviously this is Will Fuller's first game. But I don't know. I'm expecting a lot of Myles Gaskin in this game, so I don't like any of the Dolphins receivers this week. But I am very interested to see what Will Fuller does week 3. Not so much fantasy points wise. I kind of don't want him to have a big fantasy point game because I want him to have a 95% snap percentage and run routes on like 80% of plays or something crazy like that, and not score many points, so we get him still at this range. But I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 eventually.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Anyone else in value you like for receivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it just depends on the stack. I mean, Jamar Chase, as much as I love my Steelers, if Joe Hayden is not playing like he did it last week, I think he's a solid play. I love Marvin Jones Jr. I think he has been a consistent staple of the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Again, I kind of sneaky like Trevor Lawrence. So he's somebody who I like. And then moving down, I know you're probably higher on him than I am. Mooney.
I love me some Mooney.
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, Denzel Ward will probably line up against Allen Robinson, so you don't have to worry about that. But then you have Mooney coming in the slot. Fields has already shown that he likes throwing to him. I see why you like it. I just don't know necessarily how good Fields is going to be. But is there a reason why you have him here on our notes?
I mean, you can see right there, 8 targets last game, 7 week 1. Obviously, that was under a different quarterback. But I think Fields, like you mentioned, he's gonna want to throw to a slot receiver. Mooney has quickness. He can make big plays happen. He's cheap. I just think there's a lot of reasons to like Mooney for just statistical reasons to like him, and then his price is coming in very favorable, provides you some of that salary relief that we were talking about. So I mean, not anything that I think he's going to break the slate because of a unbelievable matchup, but I just think he has potential to put up a big number for a cheap price if Fields can find him. That is.
Well, there you go. Cool. Well, I think that's it for wide receivers for me. Do you have anybody else you want to touch on?
No, I think we covered most of the guys I like. So let's head over to tight end. So at tight end, one guy I really like, so I'll get him out of the way. TJ Hawkinson at 5,200. I mean, I can't say enough about how good I think this guy is, especially when you're playing on Detroit and there's no other receiver on the team. Tyrell Williams ruled out again. I don't think he's officially ruled out, but they said he's leaning to not playing. So that leaves Quintez Cephas as the number 1 receiver, who had a pretty decent game against Green Bay, not going to lie, but Hawkinson's just 20 targets through the first 2 games. Detroit's going to be, we talked about Detroit's ability to put points up, kind of keep the game competitive. Goff can throw the ball a lot, so I think Hawkinson's another good play this week at 5,200. His price even came down, which is surprising.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love Hawkinson. I mean, I think Cephas is going to be locked up against Marlon Humphrey, so that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, the only reason I don't like Hawkinson is if Baltimore is smart and they understand that Hawkinson is basically just the wide receiver for the Lions there, and they put Humphrey on him for whatever reason. That's the only way, but we can't necessarily know that going into the game. But no, I don't think any of the linebackers that are going to be able to keep up with Hawkinson he's just a monster watching that game Monday night. It even just getting the targets that you want to see, getting the usage, getting the touchdowns. He's doing it all. You gotta love that. Let me see. Is it pretty much Hawkinson and everybody else, or is there somebody else that you like? And
I mean, Hawkinson is my main guy. There's a couple other guys up there that I like. Kyle Pitts, I think he had a pretty bad week 1. I think his price came down a bit, and now to week 3 started being worked in the offense a bit last week. So I think he could be due for a big game if Matt Ryan can get the ball moving against the Giants. So kind of like that price for him. If we're going extreme value, I don't know why I like the Bears so much. This happened last week. I really like Montgomery and Allen Robinson. I don't know what's wrong with me and liking the Bears, but Cole Kmet at 3,200. I think he's going to be used a lot more in the offense than last week showed. Obviously, you have 1 target, 1 reception, 0 yards. Not going to win you many dollars in Draftkings, but I think he's someone that will be used in the offense fairly often this year, and especially, I know we've mentioned it a lot last year and maybe a bit this year, but we love the theory that rookie quarterbacks or backup quarterbacks, whatever, you're getting one of your first starts in the NFL. Love those slot and tight ends, just some safe throws that you can make across the middle of the field or to the sidelines, not forcing you to heave the ball downfield. So I think he's kind of like a safety outlet for Justin Fields.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid pick. I think whenever you see rookie quarterbacks, they tend to lean towards their tight ends. There's just that safety blanket, like you said. Somebody else who I like kind of in this range of value is Max Williams. He was somebody who last week caught 7 of his targets.
0% owned.
Was unbelievable last week. Had 94 yards. He 6 yards away from getting that bonus. No touchdowns. Still got that 16 points. 3,200 last week. He was at 2,700. Obviously, he had a terrible game against Tennessee, but they seem to be working him into the offense a little bit more. And it looks like Dana Arnold's not on this team anymore, and so it's pretty much Max Williams to have his way. And so Jacksonville is going to be a game where there's going to be a lot of potential for points early for him, and if he's able to capitalize, even get a touchdown. Maybe he doesn't get touchdowns just because there's so many other options for touchdowns. But, I mean, if he's going to have continued usage at 3,200, I think he's a solid play.
Yeah. One other guy that I don't like because he's burned me so much in the past in DFS, probably just as much, if not more, than very many other players, but Austin Hooper at 3,600. If Odell Beckham doesn't play, Jarvis Landry's already been ruled out. I think it comes down to Hooper for Mayfield to target. So I think it's a good price for a guy who might be the wide receiver 1 this week on the team.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think he's definitely a solid play. I think Chicago, they have Roquan Smith, so that might be a little bit of a tough matchup. But, no, you're right. If there's no one else to throw it to, then why not? Why not Hooper?
Yeah. Let's move over to defense. Actually, I haven't even really looked at defense much this week, so this will kind of be a de facto first look for me, but let's see who we like here. Anybody that stands out right away?
I think the Giants are better on defense than they necessarily show. I think they have good pieces on the defensive line. The secondary got torched last week with Terry McLaurin, but they also have Blake Martinez in the middle who is pretty solid. And so I think they could be a potential good play. Last week we saw the Bills do really, really well against the Dolphins. They looked fast. They looked quick. 22 points is
You and I could
great.
look good against the Dolphins.
Yeah, well, but it's the Washington football team, and so I don't know how much better that's going to be with Tyler Heineke. If you watch that game, he had overthrows on so many passes, and he had good wide receivers to be able to shut that down or to be able to grab them. But if you have Tre'Davious White on McLaurin, maybe he goes away a little bit, and then it's up to some of the other guys to make plays. And I don't know if I necessarily trust the other guys on that team.
Right. Yeah. Someone I'm looking at right now, 2,400 for the Titans. I know we talked about how they don't have a great defense, but Jacob Eason's is this? I don't know. Is this his first start? Do you know?
In the NFL, I don't know that.
Yeah, I can't recall, but it's definitely if it isn't his first, it's probably one of his first, you know, backing. He's going to be short at least T.Y. Hilton, possibly Paris Campbell, possibly Zach Pascal. So I think the Titans, if you can stop Jonathan Taylor, they win that game. So I think that's someone that you can target if you're trying to punt defense, want to save some money.
Yeah, I still can't see if this is his first start or not. But no, I definitely think that's a solid play. I mean, the defense is bad, but the quarterback play could be even worse. It will be interesting to see Indianapolis's game plan on running the ball.
Yeah.
The Bengals are another potential punt that could be good. I mean, if the Steelers' offense, if we don't have a lot of our pieces, like Deontay Johnson and Ben, that offensive line is terrible. The defensive line for the Bengals seems to be actually somewhat decent.
I mean,
so as much as it hurts me as much as it hurts me to go against them, I mean, they've put 5 and 6 points up, and if you have them at 2,100, they only need 6 points to get 3x value. You kind of want to get 4x value or 3.5 if possible, but I mean, that's still not a bad punt if you're just gonna throw it away.
Yeah. I know it's early, but do we try our hands at building our hands down DFS lineup, or do we wait for later in the week and get some more news? How are you feeling right now?
Let's throw one together. Maybe not. Let's call it the
unofficial.
Just the placeholder.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll update you guys. Follow us on Twitter at Hands Down DFS, and we'll post our quote unquote official Hands Down DFS lineup. But let's just start piecing together who we like this week. Where are you thinking at quarterback?
I think there's one spot at quarterback that we both really like.
Let's do it. Daniel Jones.
Let's go.
Definitely I guess a GPP play. I think he might carry some ownership because people will know that Atlanta hasn't been very good, but I still don't mind at 5,800. I think he's just so good, fantasy-wise.
I agree. Okay. Do we want to get the wide receivers out for the stack, or do we want to go running back?
Let's throw in Sterling Shepard. I think we can agree on there. He's definitely been the number one receiver on the team. Maybe Galladay has a good game. I don't know. You can definitely differentiate there. And I did write down. I don't want to fall into this trap, but I did write down, if you're going to play Daniel Jones, don't be obvious with it. The Daniel Jones, Sterling Shepard bringing it back with Calvin Ridley is a very obvious play, and I think will kind of be very chalky. But it seems like such a good play right now. Do you want to try to bring it back with a Falcon? And if so, do we stick with Ridley, or do we go Gage or Pitts, or do we just leave it as a giant stack?
That's what's hard is when I was looking at in the stacks episode or video earlier this week, I was looking at bringing it back, and I mean Russell Gage is questionable. We don't know necessarily how questionable that is because it's still early. Mm-hmm. It just says didn't practice Wednesday. A lot of players don't practice on Wednesdays, but I mean he hasn't been anything to write home about either, and neither has Zacchaeus. And so I think if you were to bring it back, I think Ridley could be fine. This could be the game that he finally breaks out, but as we were saying, there's so much value in that 6,000 range. Why would you pay up? And so maybe it is Pitts that we bring it back with.
All right, so let's throw Pitts in there and then look at some running backs.
Okay. So do we want to pay up for running backs, or do we want to hit some of that value?
I think so. We definitely like those 6,000 guys for a receiver, but we definitely want one of those. So I feel like we can have one decent pay up and then try to find value. I'm really liking Austin Eckler. I think he's a guy that both of us like. I think Dalvin Cook's going to be very chalky at 8,400, and Eckler, is $1,200 cheaper. You did mention Najee Harris. I think I agree. He has sneaky value. If Big Ben does play and Deontay Johnson doesn't, I'll have a lot of Harris. But it's kind of too early to tell if that's the case. So I'm good with Eckler.
Yeah, same. I think with this being the unofficial lineup, I think we can go there, and then we'll see how we want to change that later in the week. And then do we want to, I know Tyson Williams is the guy that you like going against this Detroit team. I know we also liked Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Do we want to do either of those two guys for the second spot?
For a GPP, I like Tyson Edwards a little bit more than Helaire because I think at 4,800, Helaire's probably going to be 20% owned. So I lean more Tyson Williams. But
okay. Sounds good. Okay, and then do we do the second best wide receiver in all of DFS?
No, we do the first best wide receiver in all of DFS, Cooper Kupp.
Okay. And it's chalk that you're going to eat until this guy, I say really, until this guy's at 7,500, if not higher. I think he's a must play. I could be wrong on that. I mean, but if he's getting you 33 points a game, really 6,800 is just not enough.
Yeah. So we've got not much salary remaining. I feel like a lot of our plays, Cup, Jones, are going to be a little bit chalky. Let's try to differentiate wide receiver, find some good value who maybe some other guys don't have their eyes on. It's looking at like high $4,000 range. Looking through just anybody that stands out as someone who might break out, easy matchup, might have a couple touchdowns, not necessarily everyone has their eyes on. Maybe someone like Tyler Boyd had a pretty decent game last game. I don't know. Do you know who he's going to be matched up with Pittsburgh? What DB?
Yeah, it'll depend. It'll depend on if Joe Hayden plays. I think maybe he sees some Sutton, maybe he sees some Pierre. Neither of the guys are great, and so I think they could definitely be a strong Tyler Boyd game this week. So that's not a play that I hate. I do like Marvin Jones, but I think he's a little chalkier. So I think we can go Tyler Boyd.
Okay. Yeah, let's try that. I think he should kind of sneak by some ownership wise because a lot of people are going to have eyes on Jamar Chase and T Higgins, which they should. They're probably the number 1 and 2 wide receiver on the team. At least that's what it's looked like so far. But Boyd could fall under the radar. And then,
so do we want to hit the defense first?
Yeah,
so
let's
that we know what
let's
we're working
fill in
with?
our defense.
Okay. So where do we want to go? Do we want to go the punt and try to make up as much as we can on the flex with the Bengals defense, or do we want to do the Titans maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, no, I like the Bengals defense, and it's something we can change. But if either of those guys, Big Ben or Deontay Johnson's out, I think the Bengals defense becomes even a better play. So I think that's a good punt for now.
Yeah. Man, everything in me wants to throw either Jonathan Taylor or Najee Harris in that flex spot, but everything I've been seeing is that wide receiver in the flex is definitely the move. And so
wide receiver in the flex is the Millie Maker winner move. So now's the question. I see, 2 big Chargers receivers screaming at me, but we already have Austin Eckler. If we think the Chargers are going to score a lot of points, I don't see why we can't have both. But at the same time, Adam Thielen is always capable of big games. What do we think?
Man, it's tough. I mean, part of me wants to go Mike Williams, but obviously we would be leaving $400 on the board. Man, this is just such an awkward spot to kind of end up.
I don't mind Jonathan Taylor either. I think he should be getting. He only has 12 points per game, but he's a more talented running back than that. He should be getting more than 12 points a game. Has he found the end zone at all this year? I mean, seems like
I doubt it.
He should be due for a touchdown because even with Eason in, I think they should rely heavily on Jonathan Taylor, even Nyheim Hines if you want to get really throw a contrarian play out there. I think either one of them should get decent work in the offense. So I'm okay with Taylor. I know wide receiver has been winning the GPPs in the flex, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we both like the game script for Jonathan Taylor this week. This might be something that, and again, the entire lineup might change when we get some of the news. So I think we can go Jonathan Taylor for now, but we may update that later this week depending on if there's more value somewhere else.
Yeah, so again, follow us at Hands Down DFS on Twitter, and we'll make sure, come Saturday night, Sunday morning, we'll be posting our official lineup. But here's our first unofficial, our kind of placeholder Hands Down DFS lineup for this Sunday, week 3, Draftkings main slate. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe for, the rest of our week 3 content, although this will probably be our last week 3 video, but we'll have a week 3 recap out. We'll have, our week 4 content coming early next week, so make sure you stay tuned. And Scotty, closing remarks?
Yeah, I think excited about this week. Definitely a lot of news that we'll be waiting on, and then we should also have some prize picks screenshots up on the Twitter as well. So make sure you follow us there to see those.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you in week 4. Good luck.
See you.